Attackers use us. We're their best attribute when it comes to infecting an organisation.
This was about education. This was about understanding what is and isn't a crime. You can go from a year in prison to life.
The North Koreans sent $1 billion worth of payment instructions, and the Federal Reserve paid out on about 100 million.
The biggest danger is not the criminal on the inside, but it's the good guy on the inside that lets the criminal on the outside get in.
We, me, the general staff, are the result of 80% of attacks. Attackers use us. We're their best attribute when it comes to infecting an organisation, because we're more likely to make mistakes than the computers. Everything we speak about when we talk about sophisticated attacks, we talk about utilising zero-day exploits and bespoke code and all these highly kind of sophisticated mechanisms to actually deliver the payload on an infection. The vast majority, when we go through the width and breadth of the threat landscape, we're talking commodity threats, general ransomware that's hitting home users and organisations alike, right up to APT attacks. The vast majority, to get onto the network in the first place, will use me, you, and everyone else to get on, because it's more likely to work. If it didn't work, they wouldn't do it.
The biggest danger, in my view, is not the criminal on the inside. We've all focused for years on the insider threat, these so-called baddies inside the organisation. No, 99.9% of employees are honest, hard-working, sensible, conscientious people who want to do a good day's work for a good day's pay. They're not crims. They're not going to steal money from the organisation. Of course there are bad apples in every organisation. Of course there are. But it's not the 80-20 rule, it's the 99-1 rule here, that we focus so much on the sexy stuff, the crims inside an organisation, when actually the biggest danger is not the criminal on the inside, but it's the good guy on the inside that lets the criminal on the outside get in.
So one of the really good examples of why education, training and awareness is really important relates back to the Bank of Bangladesh 2016 SWIFT hack, where hackers were illegally able to transfer up to $1 billion of assets that belong to the Bank of Bangladesh.
So if you think about it, there are three counterparties there. You have the Bank of Bangladesh, who are a developing nation, who from external reports weren't spending an awful lot on their security. So I think one of the things I saw was they'd bought some second-hand routers off of eBay, for example. You have SWIFT, the network that the secured messages were sent over, and you've got the New York Federal Reserve, where the payment instructions were received. SWIFT took a legitimate message from a machine within the Bank of Bangladesh that was coded correctly, that was signed cryptographically correctly, and they did what they're supposed to do. They sent it to the New York Federal Reserve. The interesting thing there is the number of errors that happened. The printer that should have said, here are all the payments that have gone out overnight, was disabled by the hackers. The team came in, printer didn't have any printouts from overnight, which they would have expected. And their probable response was, blooming printer, not working again. I'll put a call into IT, it'll get fixed on Monday. 99 times out of 100, 999 times out of 1,000, that's probably true. In this case, one time in 1,000, it's the North Koreans hacking you, and they've deliberately disabled the printer. The New York Federal Reserve received those payments in, and the first thing that they did is they bounced them because they were incorrectly formatted. They weren't using the right language, and they got a reply back within an hour or so, and no one at the Fed said, "Hold on, it's 4 a.m. in Bangladesh. Why are we getting a response at 4 a.m? Because they're in their normal working day. Their checklist is, are these formatted correctly? Is this a legitimate payment? Do we have the details on file? So they're in this checklist mindset. And nobody put on that checklist, number one, check, do you think the other person might have been hacked by the North Koreans? So how do you deal with that? Well, to an extent they did, because the North Koreans sent $1 billion worth of payment instructions, and the Federal Reserve paid out on about 100 million. And then somebody said, there's something weird here. there's something wrong, and they put a hold on the other 90% of the payments. Now, it's not great that they paid out on 10%, but they only paid out on 10%. And that's because a human being had the right to say, we need to stop. You know, we're not just going to have this as an automated process. Something is wrong here. How do you train that something is wrong? Well, one of the things is you have to trust your staff. They have to be able to put their hand up and say, I don't like this.
Every breach now that happens because of a human failure somewhere in the system. There are no technical security breaches anymore. If technology fails, it's because there's been a human error somewhere in the process. Computers don't make mistakes, people do.